The old town of Rochester lay sleeping under a thick blanket of snow. It was Christmas Eve, and the world had hushed itself. Street lamps, casting a gentle, golden glow upon the deserted cobblestones. Through the swirling flakes, a lone figure trudged, shoulders stooped against the biting wind. He was a weary traveler, with nothing but a small, worn bundle and a letter clutched tight against his chest. A silent promise he kept close to his heart. He stopped before a humble inn, the Seven Poor Travelers. Its windows fogged with the warmth of life inside. The sign creaked softly on its hinges, a lonely welcome in the quiet night. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted meat, spiced ale, and the cheerful crackle of a fire burning low in the great hearth. Laughter and boisterous chatter filled the room as guests celebrated the holiday, their faces flushed with good cheer. The traveler pushed open the heavy oak door, and a gust of frigid air swept in with him, silencing the room. All eyes turned to the man standing in the doorway, a silhouette of hardship against the snowy backdrop. He was caked in snow, his coat thin and frayed, his face etched with lines of exhaustion. The laughter died, replaced by a curious, cautious silence. There was something about his eyes, though. They were tired, yes, but they held a deep, unwavering kindness that seemed to cut through the chill. The innkeeper, a stout man with a kind face, broke the stillness. He wiped his hands on his apron and beckoned a man forward. "Come in, friend, out of the cold. There's a spot by the fire for you." The traveler gave a grateful, almost imperceptible nod and made his way to the hearth, his boots leaving damp prints on the wooden floor. He sank onto a small stool, his hands outstretched towards the flames, trembling slightly as the warmth began to seep into his bones. The innkeeper returned with a steaming bowl of stew and a chunk of fresh bread. The man didn't speak, but his eyes conveyed a thanks more profound than any words could. Slowly, as he ate, the life returned to him. The shivers subsided, and a faint color returned to his cheeks. The other guests, who had been watching him with a mixture of pity and suspicion, slowly began to relax. The initial judgment soft, replaced by a quiet empathy. As the night deepened and the ale flowed, the stranger began to speak, his voice soft but clear, carrying over the crackling fire. He didn't speak of his poverty or his immediate troubles. Instead, he told a story. It was a story of a soldier who had seen the worst of conflict, who had lost his home not to bombs, but to the slow erosion of time and circumstance. He spoke of wandering, not in search of riches or fame, but in search of a simple, quiet peace. His words held no bitterness, no resentment for the hand fate had dealt him. Instead, they were filled with a profound sense of gratitude. He spoke of the small kindnesses he'd encountered on his journey. A shared loaf of bread, a moment of shelter from the rain, a friendly smile from a stranger. He spoke of faith, not in a grand, divine plan, but in the inherent goodness of people. He shared his quiet conviction that on a night like Christmas, a night meant for connection and warmth, no one should ever have to feel truly alone. His story wasn't a performance. It was a simple, heartfelt sharing of his soul. As he spoke, the atmosphere in the inn transformed. The loud, individual celebrations of the guests merged into a single, shared experience. Tay listened, captivated, not just by his tale, but by the gentle strength of his spirit. The man who had entered as a poor, nameless stranger had, with his quiet words, reminded them all of what Christmas was truly about. By the time the church bells chimed for midnight mass, the inn was a different place. The guests, who had started the evening as strangers at separate tables, were now gathered together, sharing stories of their own, their laughter now softer, more genuine. They included the traveler in their circle, offering him more food, more drink, and most importantly, their companionship. The morning sun rose on a clear, crisp Christmas day, the snow glittering like a field of diamonds. The guests gathered for breakfast, a sense of community lingering in the air. But the traveler's stool by the fire was empty. The innkeeper found a small, folded note left upon it. He opened it and read it aloud to the others. The note said simply, "I came here poor, and I leave rich, for I have seen that goodness still lives among men. Tank, you." They rushed to the door and looked out into the pristine snow. A single set of footprints led away from the inn, down the street, and around the corner. Already beginning to fade under the morning sun, it was as if he had never been there at all, save for the warmth he had left behind in their hearts. The weary traveler was gone, his journey continuing, leaving behind not a debt, but a blessed and a quiet reminder of the power of kindness on a cold Christmas morning. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this story with me. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that warm the heart. From my home to yours, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a season filled with peace and kindness. See you next time.